All right, here we go. Everybody is jumping in. Let me make sure that I got the chat set up for like every single session. I have to make sure that I remember how to set the chat up so that way everybody can interact. So, real quick, good morning, everybody. I know people are jumping in. In the chat, drop where you are located and what industry that you support, mostly to make sure that I have the chat working, guys. And I also want to see where everybody's at because I know Terry and Drew are over in the UK. I'm on the East Coast of the United States. I know this week we've had, even for the first sessions, people on the West Coast in California. So definitely drop in the chat where you're based out of and what industry that you support as a recruiter. Bilingual, generalist recruiter. Awesome.
Hi, Sandra. Hi, Amy. Vermont. Hi,
Germany,
Marcus.
Brazil.
Hello. Yeah. Real cross section. Yeah, come in. Toronto, LA, Oregon.
All right, LA, it's super early for you. Arizona, that's super early. Atlanta, awesome. Well, I am so excited to introduce Terry and Drew Edwards. And if, like I know that they have been coaches and trainers in the recruiting space for a long time, and they have given so much value over the years to all the recruiters. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to invite them onto the summit. And if you want a good laugh, drop in the chat if you actually heard Terry's podcast interview with me. And my editor actually said that you were one of the top three, his favorites.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Clearly, your editor's got good taste. So that's all I can say.
Well, the floor is yours, guys, and crush it.
Thanks a lot,
Awesome.
Ben. See you later, buddy.
Good stuff. Yeah, thanks Ben for the kind intro and having us as part of the Rock the Year event. Before we sort of dive into the content, so I want to do a quick survey of the room. So who here currently has a contingency desk and who here has a retainer? So if he's contingency, put a one in the chat. If it's already retained or exclusive, put a two in the chat. If it's both, put both, so I can get a good idea of where we're at. So one contingency, two retained or both. If it's both, put both in the chat. Awesome. So a few ones here, twos.
One and twos. Got zero. Not
Awesome.
sure what that is, Lee. Zero.
Awesome.
So
So
Daniel, one and two. Yeah. Hourly model. I guess that's contractors. Yeah. Neither. Okay. Zero is neither. Excellent. Thanks, Matt. Amy, Lee, Christina. So quite a mixture, but I'd say, what do you think, Drew? Majority contingent?
majority contingent, a few retained, a few doing both, right? So this session is really going to be for the people who are either already doing retained and want to get more retainers, or you maybe you're doing contingency and you want to sort of transition to get more exclusive and more retainers, right? So it's going to be useful for both of you. Again, I just want to do a quick survey of the room. Who give me a yes in the chat box if you ever had any of the challenges in your business. And again, I'm speaking more to the people doing contingency at the moment, where you're working on a vacancy, you spend hours, days working on it, you're sending candidates across, but the client's not giving you any feedback. So give me a yes if you've had that challenge before, or you've had it where you're sending over candidates and then you ring in the client for feedback and they say, "Oh, look, we've filled the role internally, or we've cancelled this role. We're not working on it anymore." Again, give me a yes in the chat box if you ever experienced any other challenges. And Terry, any other challenges that spring to mind when you think of contingency recruitment? What springs to mind for you?
Yeah, I think the other one is where you've worked on a, excuse me, you've worked on a role only to find out that one of your competitors has actually filled the role. And in one case, one of our clients said that his competitor had filled it 10 days earlier, but he hadn't been told. He was still waiting for feedback from the resumes, CV stroke that he put forward. Needless to say, he was pretty pissed about that, as you could imagine. 10 days earlier, that role had been filled. So that's another one. But yeah, it can be frustrating. I think the other thing is just such a waste of time, isn't it, Drew? When you spent all that time and effort working and have nothing to show for it. Natalie says, I've been there. Yeah, sadly. Many a contingent recruiter has, Natalie. Many a
Yeah.
contingent recruiter has.
No, 100%. And we, a few weeks back when Ben invited us to do this talk, me and Terry were talking about, what should we talk about? What value can we give to the recruitment world? And we asked sort of our list, some of our clients, and one of the big things that kept coming back was, how do we stop all this? How do we get it so, clients aren't dragging their feet? We're getting paid for all the work we do. I think the other thing with contingency, Terry, I think often you can work 10 job orders just to fill three, right, and only get paid for the three of them, right? So we want a lot of our clients, a lot of the recruiters in our network wanted to know, how can we increase our fill rate, get paid more for the work we do, feel valued by our clients? And that's essentially what we're going to give you during this talk today. We're going to give you sort of 7 unorthodox secrets or frameworks or philosophies that some of our top clients use to either transition from contingency to retained or win more retainers. Terry, again, before we sort of dive in, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think you've made a really good point there. The numbers for the contingent recruiter. If you know your numbers, and sadly a lot of contingent recruiters don't, but I've been doing this for nearly 30 years, and the average contingent recruiter will fill between 10 to 40% of the roles they work on. By the way, if you're at 40, 50%, you're at the top end, and that's the exception rather than the rule. And even if you're at 50%, what it does mean is that 50% of the time you're working, you're not getting paid. That's right. 50% of the time you're working, you're not getting paid. Think about that for a minute. You're working on 10 jobs and you may fill 5 of them, but the other 5 will be a waste of time. Now, if you've got a team, so you're paying your consultants and recruiters to fill these roles, most of the time they're working, they're not going to generate any income. It's not fair. It doesn't have to be that way. That's what I want to show you. And what we want to do today is just give you as much value as possible, so you can go out there and you can start winning more retained or exclusive business. So you don't have to go through that again. So that's our sole aim for today. Back to you, Drew.
Terry, real quick, just because I know there's a few people that said zero or neither in the chat. Can you just very quickly give me a brief sort of description of what the difference is when we say contingency? What do we mean? When we say exclusive or retained, what do we mean? Just for anyone who's sort of unfamiliar with the terms.
Yeah, so contingent. I won't go to the reason why this happens, but the contingent is where you say to a hiring manager, you got any job orders? And the hiring manager says, yes, I have. I'm looking for an XYZ. If you know anybody, send them over. And a real rookie recruiter will put the phone down and high five their clients, going, "Yeah, I just got a job order." Fact is, if it's on contingent, there's a number of other recruiters working on it. Then that's the problem. And it's recruiters often say it's because of the shortage of candidates. But these roles are getting filled, so we know there isn't a shortage of candidates. It's the fact that there's 4 or 5 other recruiters working on it. If the first recruiter got that job order a week or 2 weeks before you, it's got a head start. It's like you going into a boxing ring with one hand tied behind your back. The chances of filling there with somebody's got a 2-week head start on you are pretty slim. So as a consequence, most of the job orders you get, you don't fill. So you only get paid if you fill the roles. So that's contingent. The good thing about it is, to enter the market to offer contingent, anybody can do it. You just need a phone and a computer, and you're in. The other model is exclusive. So let's give you some numbers. Contingent fill rate is between 20 and 40%, so 10 and 40%. We reckon the average is probably about 25%. The average contingent recruiter will fill about 25% of the roles they're working on. The other model is exclusive. Now, when you're talking to the hiring manager working on the job, you're the only recruiter working on that job. Here's what's interesting, though. Your fill rate goes up to about 70%. There's also something called exclusive with cancellation, where you say to the hiring manager, I'll work exclusively with you if you'll work exclusively with me. In the event that you cancel this, then you pay a cancellation fee. Now your fill rate goes up to about 80%. But the good news here is, if they cancel for any reason, you get a percentage of the fee. And the classic model is retained. And the old model that I'm familiar with is where, a third. You pay a third upon authorization to start the role, a third upon presentation of acceptable shortlist, and the balance, the final third, upon offer and acceptance, not when the candidate starts, upon offer and acceptance. And that's a classic model of retained. Now, you can do different models of that. Some of our clients do 50% up front. Some of our clients do a what's called a container, where you pay a deposit of 2,000 or 3,000 up front, but some sort of engagement from the hiring manager. So they're the sort of 3 models. Contingent, you get paid on delivery. Exclusive, client works with you exclusively. Exclusive with cancellation, if they cancel, they pay. And retain. Let me just check in if that's all making sense. I don't want to kind of go on if that's making sense. If you're familiar, or if that all makes sense in terms of those 3 main models.
Yeah, give us a yes in the chat box if that's making sense, just so we know. Awesome, thanks, Monica. Just yes if it makes sense. No, if it's not as well, let us know. We can explain. Cool.
Just
Cool.
very quickly,
Perfect.
Nadia said the fill rates on each. So on contingent, these are average figures from the clients that we've spoken to over the last 20 odd years. About 25% on contingent fill rate. So 75% of the time you're working, not getting paid. On exclusive, it's about 65, 70%. On exclusive with cancellation, it then goes up to 80, 85%. On retained, it's about 90%. There is no foolproof method, by the way, where you you work on the job and you always fit it. Things happen. And then retained is where they pay a percentage of the fee up front. Just to make sure that makes sense to everybody. So they're the three models. You just
or
increase four or three. Well, yeah. But
And again, I think just an important thing
on,
to add. Although the fill rate increases, as you move up the models, with exclusive with cancellation and retained, although the fill rate, yes, is higher, I think the important thing I want to get across here, and our goal for you is that you walk away with the confidence to start working on exclusive with cancellation or retained, is that you're going to get paid for every single job order you work. You're going to get paid for at least a percentage of every single job order you work. So there's no more, working your ass off, spending hours on a job order, not seeing any revenue for it. Because if the client cancels, you're still going to get paid. With retained, you're going to get paid up front. Again, so on check-in, does that make sense? Give me yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, just to give you an example, I had a landscape gardener about 3 weeks ago come round to give us a quote to do some work in our garden. And I've gone ahead with this landscape gardener. What he's asked for is 50% of the fee up front before he even starts working. And I don't flinch at that. I go, yeah, well, that's to be expected. I think, in my opinion, by the way, if you can, any of you guys want to tell me differently, in my opinion, recruitment's the only industry where the purchaser sometimes expects you to work for nothing until you've filled the role. It's the only industry that I know of where that goes on. Yeah, Trisha's just said it's crazy, isn't it? Absolutely crazy. And yeah, we won't go into why for now. Back to you, Drew. Let you lead it, so to speak.
Awesome. So look, we're going to dive into the content right now, right? But before we do, I want to do a quick disclaimer, right? So obviously we're all here because we want to get more retainers or transition from contingency to retained or exclusive with cancellation. But to be very clear, like none of what we share with you is going to work for you if you're not prepared to step outside your comfort zone and do things differently to what you're currently doing right now, right? It's not going to work for you if you're closed-minded or not prepared to, view things a different way to what you're doing. Because it's fair to say, if what you're doing was working and getting the results you want, you wouldn't be here. Right? We're all here to improve. So with that in mind, we're here to give you the value. We're here to answer any questions you've got. Right. So use the chat box if you've got questions. We've got about 60 minutes or 55 minutes left. Right. For that 55 minutes, for the next 55 minutes, I want you to be fully engaged. Right. We can't see your faces. We can't get to sort of be in a room with you. So what I want is, when things are making sense or when things aren't making sense, let us know in the chat box. Shut down your emails, LinkedIn. Unless you're watching on LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, any distraction, shut down and sort of be with us for the next 55 minutes. We're here to answer your questions and give you as much value as possible. Again, so I want to check in. Is that okay with everybody? Just give me a yes in the chat box if it is, and then we'll dive into the first secrets. Give me a yes if that's okay. We're going to be fully engaged for the next 55 minutes. Awesome. Good stuff. Perfect. And if anything's not making sense, you've got questions, feel free to ask. And again, we're gonna answer. Right. So let's dive in. Secret number one, or the belief number one to help you go from contingency retained or win more retainers is that you need to approach prospects before they have a need, not when they have a need, right? So again, grab a pen, pencil, whatever, write this down. Approach prospects before they have a need, not when they have a need. So what we mean by that is what the majority of the recruitment world does in terms of business development, right? They are looking for open vacancies, right? Think about the way that you structure your LinkedIn messages, your emails, anything you do business development wise, we're often looking for open vacancies. So do you have any job orders? What vacancies do you have? Are you hiring right now? That's the sort of typical message that we see with contingency recruiters in terms of how they develop business, right? The problem with that is think about your market, any sector, you've got about maybe 3 to 5% of your market hiring at any one time, right? So 3 to 5% of your market hiring at any one time. And then you have most recruiters going after that 3 to 5%, but then you got the other 95% that are untouched. Again, so I want to check in. Does that make sense? First of all, give me a yes or no in the chat box. Awesome. Perfect. So the problem with that is, and again, if you're doing things right now, you probably experience this, is that when you win business of those clients that are hiring right now, it's the business that every other recruiter wins as well. So you end up competing with 2, 3, 5 of your competitors on the same job order, right? If you're competing with 5 of your competitors on the same job order, or you don't get there first, it's very, very difficult to then convince the client to go exclusive or go retained or go exclusive conversation, because I've already got people working on a vacancy. Again, someone check in. Does that make sense? Give me yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you want to add to that? You're on mute, Terry.
Apologies. Chasing open vacancies. It's kind of easy to do, isn't it? If you say to anybody, where can I find open vacancies? Oh, that's dead easy. That's the easiest thing to go to a few job boards, go to clients' websites. It's the easy thing to do. As a consequence, that's what most recruiters do. That's not a criticism. You're going to go for what's the easiest. Let me find the open vacancies, because if I find the open vacancies, I'm in with a chance. So that's why it happens. But you're only finding a small percentage. You're finding the hiring managers that are buying right now. And there's 2 types of hiring managers that we're going to come on to. There's what we call the now hiring manager. They're hiring right now. But there's a bigger market, the future hiring managers that are going to hire next week, next month, next quarter, the end of this year. It's more difficult to find the future hiring manager than the now hiring manager. So the majority of recruiters go, I just find the now hiring manager because that's real easy. No skill required for that. And I'm going to be clear as well. I'm not saying that working on contingency doesn't work, because of course it works. And I know some very successful contingent recruiters, but it can be hard work. It can be demoralizing. It can sap the confidence of the business owner and the other members of the team. We've all been there where you've worked on a ton of job orders, and at the end of the month, you've got nothing to show for it. And it can sap your confidence and your whole enjoyment of what you're doing working on contingent. One of the main reasons we would encourage you to always get paid for the work that you do. That's all we're suggesting, by the way. Why don't you get paid every time you do some work? If anybody thinks I'm being unreasonable with that, please let me know. But that's all we're suggesting on that one. Back to you, Drew.
Yeah, awesome. So again, one of the big shifts you need to make right now, right, is again look at all of your business development efforts. Look at your outbound calling script, your LinkedIn messages, your cold emails, whatever it is you do to generate business right now, and think about is the message catered to the now buyers or the future buyers, right? It's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to win a exclusive cancellation or retained assignments if the client that you're speaking to are already speaking to other recruiters, right? Your ideal scenario is you want to be the first person they think of when they hire. So you want to get in there now, build relationships with them now. So when they have a hiring need, which maybe 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, you're the first person they think of. Not that you're there just as they have a hiring need and you're doing what every other recruiter does, where you're calling them, seeing what vacancies they have right now. Again, so I want to check in. Does that make sense? First of all, give me a yes or no in the chat box, and any questions on that, let us know as well. And Terry, anything you want to add to that just to finish up?
Yeah, just real quick. I was talking to one of our clients yesterday morning. He's just found out about a CRO role that they want to fill in September of this year. Now, most recruiters at this stage go, "I'll call you back in September." What we encourage our clients to do is to establish from the client's point of view, do you want this CRO to start in September, or what? In fact, when do you want them to start? The hiring manager says, "Well, actually, we want them here in September of this year." In the UK, the notice period for that type of CRO is going to be about 8 weeks. So if you go back 8 weeks from September, you're now looking at the beginning of July is when they need to make the offer. So the recruiter is now saying, so you need to make the offer to this candidate round about the beginning of July. Does that sound about right? Yes, it does. Okay. In our experience, it's probably going to take about 6 to 8 weeks to find this candidate. So in our opinion, you probably need to start looking for this candidate round about the middle of May. How does that sound to you? Yeah, that's about right. Okay. Why don't we book an appointment for the 4th of May? I think it's the 4th of May. To look at this CRO role that you want to fill in September. See, our client's identified the future hiring manager. He's talking to a hiring manager they're going to recruit somebody in a salary of about 200,000. He's going to get fees of 45,000 for that one placement. But he's only targeting the future buyers. If he spoke to someone and said, yeah, we're looking for a CRO, we're looking for them right now, to say, hey, I wish you all the best in that. I'm not in a position to help you with that one. Monica's just asked if the notice period in the UK supports more exclusivities. So there's a reason why I'm smiling, Monica. Full disclosure, let me explain what I'm doing. Well, we work with clients all over the world. First of all, South Africa, Norway, all over the world, North America, and so on. But here's what I always find interesting. When I talk to North Americans, they say, "Yeah, but it's easy for the Europeans to get retained work." But interestingly, when I talk to Europeans, they say, "Oh, we target North America and it's easier to get retained work there." By the way, there is no evidence to support any of that. It makes no difference, Monica. We've got highly successful retained recruiters working in North America and in Europe. It's got nothing to do with the location whatsoever. Got more to do, by the way. One of the reasons, there's two main reasons. I'm digressing, I know, Drew, and Drew's going to tell me off a minute. There's two main reasons why you're not getting retained or exclusive. One, most of your clients don't know, have never heard of you. And two, you've probably never asked for a retained or exclusive. And I'm yet to meet a hiring manager that when you call them, they say, "Well, that's fantastic. I want to work with you straight away. Here's my card details. Let's work on this on a retained basis." It doesn't happen unless you know how to ask for it. So they're the main reasons why you're not getting retained or exclusive because of that. But look, I digress, Drew. I know. I'm going to hand back to you.
Awesome. Yeah, again, just checking, is that it all makes sense if I give us a yes? If you've got any questions, let us know as well, or any feedback, any thoughts, right? While you're doing that, I'm going to move on to number two. So number two, secret number two is to only sell to buyers, right? Only sell to buyers. But again, sounds obvious, of course I'm only going to sell to buyers. One of the mistakes that we see recruiters make is that they're trying to sell in markets or to audiences that aren't suited for an exclusive conversation or retained service, right? So you're selling to clients or prospects that aren't suited for exclusive conversation or retained service. The fact of the matter is, and Terry sort of touched on it there, the retained service or the exclusive service isn't going to be a right fit for every type of client or every sector or every role in every sector. So again, some of you need to look at your business right now and think about, is the sector I'm working in or is the roles I'm recruiting for, is it suited to a retained service, right? And what I mean by that is, when we're speaking to a prospect, when you're going to make an offer to a prospect, we call it, we say BANT, so BANT, right? Does this prospect have the budget to afford my service? Do they have the authority? Right? Am I actually speaking to the decision maker? Am I speaking to the person who's actually going to make the hiring decisions rather than, someone who's going to pass on to somebody else, right? So budget, authority, need, right? Need's the important one. Does this prospect have a need? And when I say need, I don't mean need for recruitment, right? That's at the basic level. Do they have a need for an exclusive service? As in, for this client, for this particular client or this group of clients, would it suit them? Is it best for them if, when I go out and find the top candidates, if I think about it, do they want me to send those candidates to their competitors or do they want those candidates exclusively? Right? Again, do they have a need for an exclusive service? They have a need for an exclusive service. And then again, timing, right? So BANT, budget, authority, need, timing. If we're speaking to people that don't have those four things, there's no point selling a retained service or an exclusive service to them because it's not fit for them, right? So we need to make sure that your business development, your marketing, or your business, the people that you're recruiting for, they're actually roles that suit the retained or exclusive service. Again, just want to check in. Does that make sense to me? Yes or no in the chat box, right? Because we want ideally, you want to be working on roles that are critical to the organization, because roles that are critical to the organization or department or whatever, they're more suited to an exclusive service, right? Because of course, if I'm a CEO and I'm hiring for a director or whatever, I don't want, when you find the best candidates, I don't want you to send them to my competitors. I don't want a contingency service. I want them exclusively to me, right? And again, you need to think about that. Are you talking to clients, talking to prospects where it fits, it suits them to have an exclusive level of service? Again, let me know if that makes sense. Any questions, let me know. Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, just to add to that, yeah, so you've made some really great points there, Drew. Here's what we're considering. And by the way, if you've got children, you get that. You can get anybody to do anything if you can communicate the benefit to them. So you reach out to a hiring manager and say, "I want you to work with me on an exclusive basis because of my cash flow and I'm sick and tired." They're thinking, "I couldn't care less." But if you can communicate the benefit to them as a hiring manager, so anybody that's got children, you'll relate to this. You will say things like this to children when they're a certain age. If you don't eat your salads or your greens, you're not going to go back on your screen again. And you know that you can get your children at a certain age to eat their greens. If they want to go back on the computer, go on the screen again. And exactly the same applies to a hiring manager. And Drew asked a really good question there, and you may have missed it, but don't take our word for this, by the way. Test it for yourself. The next time you're recruiting for a business critical role, ask the hiring manager this. Before you pitch or anything, ask this question. I can find the top performing, insert the job title. I'll find the industry's top performing CROs, MDs, whatever the role is. And you'll probably appreciate, because of the top performers, there's a high demand for these type of candidates. Would you agree? The hiring manager goes, well, yeah. But look, when I find them, do you want them exclusively, or is it okay if I share them with your direct competitors? And just sit back, watch their reaction. I'll give you a cast iron guarantee. You'll get 100% hell no. I want these guys exclusive. Now, the hiring managers now agree to work with you exclusive because it's a benefit to them. It's not about you. And if you can communicate that benefit to them, they're going to work with you on an exclusive basis. That's only part of it, but you've got to be communicating the benefit to them. As Drew rightly said, they don't want you sharing the top candidates with their direct competitors in a candidate short market. Again, please just give me a why in the box if that makes sense. If you can communicate the benefit to them, and if they've got the budget, the authority, they actually have a need for what you're offering, and the time is right. Just want to check in that makes sense. Yeah, great, excellent. Thanks for that, Monica, Daniel, Catherine, Marcus, Sylvia, Matt, Amy, Sarah. Thank you very much for that. Thanks for the feedback.
Awesome. So again, just for these two things, right? If we're speaking to future buyers, right, and we're building relationships before they have a need, then when they do have a need, right, we're making sure they've got the budget, authority, need, timing. Again, a lot of you are pitching or selling, trying to sell your services to people that can't actually don't have the authority to make a hiring decision, don't have the authority to say yes to an exclusive or retained, especially exclusive or cancellation, right? And sometimes, again, just a point. Sometimes they're letting you believe they have the authority. They're getting you to work on contingency, and they haven't even cleared it with the hiring manager. So there's not even a vacancy to work on really, but you're doing all the work. Again, just as a side point. Okay, just a quick question here. What about clients that want your exclusivity but can't commit exclusive to you?
Okay, and that's Phil. I think that looks like. Really appreciate you bringing that up. Here's something else, by the way, please, I want you to either write this down, or if you can get this tattooed on your right forearm. You are not here to serve everyone.
100%.
Here's the fun fact: there is more business out there than you can handle. Not every single client are you here to serve. So in answer to your question, if a client says, well, I want these candidates exclusively, but I'm not going to work exclusively with you, say, well, I'm not going to work with you. It really is as simple as that. This has got to be win-win. This has got to be mutual respect. That's imperative. I just hope that makes sense, Phil. Yeah? Excellent. Great.
Awesome.
I'm going to repeat that.
Perfect.
You're not here to serve every single potential client out there.
Awesome. So number three, and again, this one's important, right? All important, but this one's my favorite one, right? The number one objective of the sales meeting is to help the prospect make the best decision for them, right? So the number one objective of any sales meeting you enter is to it's not for you, not to try and get money. It's to help the prospect make the best decision for them. So one of the key elements, one of the key things that go behind winning retainers or winning exclusive cancellation is you need to have the belief that it's the best thing for the prospect, right? So you need to have belief that actually, look, based on what the prospect says, they've got the budget, authority, need, timing. This level of service they want, they can't get that with contingency. They can't get that level of service with contingency because they want the top candidates, and I can only do that if I'm working exclusively with them. Again, if you have that belief, if you don't have that belief, it's going to be very difficult for you to make the transition or start winning more retainers, right? So again, just want to check in, and again, it's obviously we're all recruiters in the room. There's none of your clients here. Who here truly believes that an exclusive cancellation or retained service is best for their clients? Give me a yes or no in the chat box. Who believes that it's best for their clients? Again, I'm not talking about best for you. I'm not talking about best for your cash flow. Who here believes it's best for your clients, right? Again, all yeses so far. Again, if it's no, that's fine as well. Perfect. So again, this is about, because to me it becomes about ethics now. If we believe that that's the best service for our clients, don't work contingency. Don't offer a subpar service. Be committed to getting your clients the results you want. And again, going back to what Terry said, if they can't see that, you need to be willing to walk away, because we need to be committed to getting them the best results. We need to be committed to doing what's best for them. And if that means, there's no right or wrong, but if you believe that means that you need to work with them exclusively because you need to deliver the best candidates to them exclusively and not to their competitors, which is going to obviously reduce their chance of getting the best candidate, then we need to stick by that and believe in that. Again, someone check in. Does that make sense? Give me yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you want to add?
Yeah, it's some great points there. It really is. I'm not going to add anything at the time being here because I know we've got to be careful with the time as well. So I'm gonna let you go to the next point. But yeah, some great points there. And it is about belief, because if you haven't got that belief that this is going to be best for the client, that's where you get that discomfort internally, where you're going, this is a little bit icky because I don't believe. And if by the way, if you're ever feeling that, walk away. If you don't feel it's best for the client, just simply walk away.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we can be attached to what's best for us as a recruiter. You know, we look at retainers, we look at exclusive cancellations, and then, you know, we spoke about it at the start of this call. You know, you're going to get paid for every job order you work. That's great, right? That should be secondary. The real sort of win here is that we're going to get our clients amazing results. We're going to fill every job order with the best candidates, right? We're going to get them the best results possible. And I think that needs to be the core belief behind transitioning to this business model, or increasing the number of retainers you're winning. Just on that, Terry mentioned the time. So again, we've only got sort of 30 minutes left, but I wanted to give you as much value as possible. So what we've done is, if you want the script that our clients use to win more retainers, the exact objection script, if you go to makemoreplacements.com/call, and I've put the link in the chat box, you can book a 15-minute call with one of our team, and we'll give you that. So that's the objection handling script, and also the actual sales script that we use to win more retainers or exclusive conversation as well. And as well, I've got to say, and the terms as well. So if you want all three of those things, go to makemoreplacement.com/call and book in 15-minute call. We'll ask you a few questions about your business and give you the script, and that's it. So that's makemoreplacements.com/call. But moving on to number four. Number four, and again, write this down, is more opportunities create more room to say no. So more opportunities create more room to say no. One of the key things you want to be working on, if you want to sort of make this transition or want to get more retainers, is we need to create more sales meetings in your calendar. Again, one of sort of my sort of pet hates with the recruitment industry or marketing recruitment industry is that we do a lot of outreach. We do branding, we do all the social media posts, and you know, sometimes we can get lost, or we lose the purpose of business development. For me, the only purpose of this business development, only purpose of marketing, is to get more people into your sales process. And for all of us here, your sales process is going to be some form of meeting, whether it's a Zoom meeting, face-to-face meeting, telephone meeting, whatever. So if you look at the marketing you're doing right now, is it generating you more meetings? If it's not, then we need to change things, right? And again, one of the key ways we're going to be able to sort of get more retainers or transition, if we're doing things at the moment, is we need more sales meetings. So obviously, the more sales meetings we have, the more offers we can make, the more people are going to say yes. But also, I think the most important thing here, the more detached we can be from the outcome, the more people we can walk away from, right? So Phil said, one of the questions he asked was, what happens when the client's demanding exclusivity from you, but they're not going to be exclusive from their side. Sometimes when you've got not many sales meetings that month, you feel like you feel the pressure to take the business. You feel pressure to take contingency because I don't know where my next paycheck's coming from, right? But when you've got an abundance of sales meetings, again, it gives you that confidence when you go into the sales meeting to walk away. Look, fine, Mr. and Mrs. Client, if you're not prepared to do this, if you don't want to respect me enough to work exclusively, then I've got 5 meetings today. I know one of them will, right? We need to have that sort of abundance in your, again, it's a great mindset to have, but it's easy to have that mindset when it's a literal fact that you've got an abundance of sales meetings. Again, someone check in. Does that make sense? Give me a yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, it reminds me of that film that I'm sure you're all familiar with, the film Pretty Woman with Julia Roberts. And there's a scene in where Julia Roberts and the main protagonist, whose name I can't remember right now, have a bit of a tiff. And he turns around to her and he says, yeah, but you're a hooker. And she said, listen, I say when, I say who, and Richard Gere, thank you, and I say how much. How often have you said when, who, and how much? Because most recruiters can't do that because they haven't got enough, they're not having enough opportunities. Because here's the fact, most of your marketing will be ignored most of the time. That's a fact. Most of your sales offers will be declined most of the time. Intellectually, you already know that. You intellectually know it's kind of a bit of a numbers game. But if you're only having 2, 3, 5 meetings a month, now you're thinking, shoot, this client wants to work with me wants me to work with them exclusively, but they're not going to work with me exclusively. This is better than nothing at all. I've only got 3 or 4 opportunities coming up. What would it mean to you though if you knew that you had 20 meetings a month every month, and you knew that most of the clients that you talk to aren't going to agree to work with you on the fees that you want when you want to work with them and agree to your terms, and you go, well, I can live with that. Hell, if I now only convert at 10% and I'm winning 2 retainers a month every month, what's the problem? Each meeting will take me an hour, so I'm going to spend 20 hours a month talking to 20 different clients, but only 2 of them when they convert into retained business. See, now you're deciding who you're working with, how much, and when you're going to work with them. But the shift comes in you acknowledging that really great point that Drew made, that you're not here to work with everybody, and you've got to be comfortable with the rejection, because you are going to get the rejection. But it's your choice. There's a great saying, isn't there? What you're not changing, you're choosing. What you're not changing in your life, in your business right now, you can't piss and moan about it if you're making that decision not to change it, because you're now choosing that. So if you want to change things, you have to do things differently, because you can't acknowledge, well, if I keep doing what I'm doing now, I know the outcome I'm going to get because I've had that for some time now. So it's then up to you to go, actually, I must decide who we'll work with, what the fees are going to be. And please don't say to me, yeah, but in my market, my clients won't work retainer or they won't pay high fees or whatever, because that's not true. Because whoever you are right now, you know there are recruiters out there charging less than you and they're getting business. You know that already. And you walk away from that business, I'm not going to work at that level. But you also know there's recruiters out there charging more than you. You also know there's some recruiters that only work on the retaining basis. I've worked for 2 main recruitment firms and we only worked retained. You could only do business on the retained basis. That was it. So we did walk away, and our clients still now to this very day walk away from that, from contingent business. But that's your choice. I'll repeat: what you're not changing, at some level, you're choosing. Back to you, Drew.
Awesome. Again, just want to check in. Does that make sense? Give us a yes or no in the chat box. Any questions, let us know as well. Terry, I've got a question here. It's anonymous, but it says, have you ever heard of anyone refunding and retained money or a portion of it if they can't fill the role for whatever reason?
In a very brief answer, rarely. Rarely. The retained is non-refundable. By the way, if you're doing the best for the client, if you don't think you can fill that role, you shouldn't take it. So this isn't contingent recruiter where it doesn't matter whether you take on lousy roles that you don't think you can fill, because you think, I'll take a punt on this. I think it's a very English saying, we'll take a punt on this because we might get lucky. This is retained recruitment. You don't behave that way. So no, if you get the retainer, it's not refundable. Now, you don't charge the shortlist fee unless the shortlist presented is acceptable. So your terms would state, payment 2 is payable upon presentation of acceptable shortlist, where you present a shortlist of candidates. And the client says, yes, that's acceptable. So I hope that answers your question, Drew.
Yeah, again, I don't know who asked that question, but if it doesn't make sense, let us know. If it does, let us know as well. Again, to move on to number 5. Number 5, again, write this down, is rule number 5 or secret number 5 is to never offer a solution without first a deep understanding of the problem. So never offer a solution without first a deep understanding of the problem, right? But again, a big mistake that we see is, in fact, I'll put it like this. Your clients don't buy retainers, right? Clients don't buy retainers. What they buy is the level of service that comes with a retainer, right? The retainer, when we say retainer, really it's just the payment terms. What they're really buying is your commitment to filling the role, your commitment to doing the search, and the exclusivity, right? We need to first understand the problems they have in their business to make sure that that's a fit, right? Do they need, like I said before, are they a buyer? Do they need this level of service, right? But once we understand that, I think, again, one of the mistakes we make is when we decide we want to work retained, we try and sell the idea of retained. The retained part's just the payment terms, right? It's what you want to be getting a client to commit to or getting a client to agree to is the exclusive level of service. Once they agree to that, then you can say, okay, great. We both agree that you want us to send the candidates to you exclusively, and we're going to be exclusive to you. You're going to be exclusive to us. In order for that to happen, here's our payment terms, and that's where the retained part comes in, right? We're not selling the retainer. The retainer is just the payment terms for the level of service. Again, I want to check in. Does that make sense? And Terry, anything you want to add to that in terms of never offer a solution without first deep understanding of the
Yeah,
problem?
it's a bit like you going into imagine you're going to your doctor's. You've got a bit of a sore throat. You knock on the doctor's surgery, and the doctor says, "Come on in." And as you walk in, the doctor's sitting at the desk, and she's looking at me. She doesn't even look at you, and then she then says to you, "Get behind the screen, take your clothes off. I'll be with you in a minute." You'd think, "What the hell? How dare you? I've got a sore throat, and this is malpractice." And you're right. How many times have you done that to a hiring manager? Hi, I'm a recruiter. My name is, we do this. Our mission statement's this, all about you. And you offer these solutions, but you don't actually know what their problem is. And the moment you do that, you've lost that credibility. Also, by the way, that's authority. Because the perception now is here's another recruiter. You're just like all the other guys. Drew pointed out something really good at the beginning about the client's got to have a need. You've got to establish what that need is and the timing of that need. And this person is the authority. And that's by asking questions. People have this thing about, or to be a great recruiter, you've got to be a great salesperson. In my experience, to be a successful recruiter, you need to know the right questions to ask. Selling is not telling. Back to you, Drew.
Awesome. Again, someone check in. Does that make sense? Give us a yes or no in the chat box.
Natty's got a question there, Drew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I've got a question here as well. So,
okay.
Yeah, we're doing that this question first, Terry. I've got to put this to you. What if you weren't retained and after hiring a candidate, they say the candidate was already in the HR system? I've seen this happen a few times in my agency days.
Well, if the part of the candidate from you, Natalie, I'm not sure why they would then say it was always in their HR system. I'm not sure if I fully understand that question. The point is, Natalie, if they've paid you the retainer, they've paid you the retainer. If you presented a shortlist and it's acceptable to them, they're going to pay the shortlist fee, and they pay the balance upon offering acceptance. If they're saying that this candidate was also on their list, but they didn't hire the candidate, I would look at them and ask them what the relevance of that is, because I've done my work and done what you've asked me to do. So whether you had them or not, it's almost irrelevant. I'm not sure if that's quite how you meant that, Natalie. If I've got that wrong, by the way, Natalie, please let me know. But it won't be a problem if...
Terry, do you think it's worth explaining again? Because a similar question here, like when we say retained, and it's free payments, can you just explain very quickly what the three payments are for? Because they're for a different part of the search, or a different part of the service.
Yeah. So the first stage is upon authorization to carry out. So let's make it really simple. The total fee is 30,000 for this particular role. So the first stage is the typical route is a third. So the first stage would be 10,000 upon authorization to start this search. So the client will pay before you even start. The client has to pay an invoice of 10,000. Then you go and do your research and you find the candidates and you interview them. And you go back to the client with what's called a shortlist report. And on the shortlist report, you're going to say, I've interviewed these candidates, but these 4 candidates are the best candidates. Here's their CV, strokes, resumes. Here's our notes on them. This is why we think they're the 4 best candidates. The client looks at that report and goes, yes, this shortlist is acceptable. You then raise the second invoice, what we call the shortlist fee. And then the balance is when the clients interviewed all the candidates and made an offer, and that candidate's accepted that offer, then you raise the third and final fee. So it would be 3 stages of 10 in that case. Let me just check in with you, Drew, first of all. Does that make sense to you in terms of the concept?
Just to me, yeah. Again, do you want to give us a yes or no in the chat box if that's making sense?
Yes. So Peter's saying, if the client says the shortlist is unacceptable, you can't raise the invoice. So you go, what needs to what do you need to see on this shortlist to make it acceptable to you? And they will say, well, we were looking for X, Y, Z, and so on and so on. And yes, to answer your question, but you would then go back and present another shortlist. You should never get to that situation. You should fully understand the brief. You should never get to a situation where a client saying this is unacceptable. And you're not working blind. You're always going back to clients and I found this candidate. How do they look? You're always getting feedback from the client. It can still happen, by the way, because sometimes the clients change, as we all know. The clients change the rules of what they're actually looking for. But it's very rare for that to happen. Whoever asked that, Peter, who asked that question.
Yeah, Terry, just a quick question for me on this. Like, let's say you've done, you took the 2 stages, you've done the search, the search, the page for that, then you presented the shortlist. and let's say there's 5 people on the shortlist. When, just going back to Peter's question, I guess it's rare that they say no to the whole shortlist. But I think it was Natalie that asked if they already had interviewed that candidate, one of the candidates in the shortlist. Would they say no to that particular candidate and say, look, we've already interviewed this
Yeah,
person?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's possible, by the way, Nat. That's a good point, actually. So if you present that candidate and they go, yeah, we know that candidate, we've interviewed them, so we don't take things further. That's totally acceptable, by the way. That can happen as well. Yes,
But again, they're still going to accept the other 4 on the shortlist anyway.
absolutely.
So
Yeah, yeah,
it doesn't really affect you either way. And again, I think the important thing with retainers, you need to make sure your terms are tight as well. So with our clients, when a role gets filled, whether it's filled with a candidate on their shortlist or not, they're still going to get paid the final fee, right? Because they've done the search, they've done the shortlist, they've done the work, right? Again, you need to make sure your terms are tight. Again, another question here, Terry. The question is, what's the top rebuttal you hear from customers when offering a retained search, and how do you overcome it? So, what's the top rebuttal you hear from customers when offering a retained search, and how do you overcome it? Terry, do you mind if I get this one first?
yes, please, yeah.
Yes, again, it's anonymous. What I'd say on this, right? Again, going back to what I said before, you shouldn't really be selling the retainer. You sell the exclusive. The idea is exclusivity, right? And again, if you've done what I said before, you've got the budget authority need timing. It's very rare that a client's going to say, look, I don't want you to send the candidates to me exclusively, right? They wouldn't. It doesn't make any sense. So the only rebuttal is going to be is in terms of retainer, it's going to be the payment terms. They don't want to pay the fee, and it's going to be the typical fee conversation that you probably have with contingent anyway. And again, in terms of how do you overcome it, I think there's lots of again, if you go to makemoreplacements.com/call, you can book a call. We give you our objection sheet, but I think one of the key things to handle any objection is volume, right? If you've got enough sales calls in the calendar where you can walk away, again, it puts it all negotiating power back on you, right? I think a lot of the time, sometimes when we feel like we can't push back when they're asking for a lower fee or longer payment terms, is because we feel like we need the business. I think if you can get out of that mindset or out of that situation, again, overcoming any objection becomes easier. Again, Terry, first of all, just want to check in if that makes sense. Give me yes or no. And Terry, what would you say to that question?
There's nothing more to add. You've summed it up. And again, whoever asked that question, if you've asked the question to the hiring manager, you've made a statement. There's a shortage of good quality candidates. Do you agree? Yes, I do. When I find the top 5% of these candidates that you're looking for that are business critical, do you want them exclusively, or can I share them with your direct competitors? Hell no, I want these guys exclusively. So you only want these candidates. You don't want me to share them. Is that right? That's correct. So it's fair to assume then that we both work exclusively together. I won't share these candidates with your competitors, and we'll work exclusively. That seems reasonable, does it? Yes, it does. As Drew said, that they've now agreed to work you exclusively. The fees is just the typical conversation that you have with fees anyway. Oh, you want 33%. Well, normally I only pay 18%. But how's that gone so far? And that type of conversation, you're going to get that at all levels, by the way.
Yeah.
And by the way, here's another question, by the way. When the candidates then push you on the fee, ask this question or make this statement. I can get you the best candidate, but I can't get you the cheapest. From your point of view, do you want the best candidate or do you want the cheapest? Well, hell no, I want the best. Great. Because you've now taken out this conversation about, I want a lower fee. You can't have both. If you're going to pay, if you're not going to pay the 33% that I normally charge for my candidates, but your competitors will, what would you do in my shoes? But
Yeah.
it's again, notice you're not telling them, you're asking them questions for them to acknowledge, well, yeah, this makes sense. Standing is not telling, it's probably a better description. Very quickly, I know we're running out of time. A very close friend of mine is a counselor, and she helps people with drug and alcohol abuse. So when people go along to her, she didn't say, well, you've got a drug and drink problem, buddy, you need to get yourself sorted. She asks a series of questions because she says until they acknowledge and they verbalize what's going on, nobody can help them. Nobody. You as a recruitment business, until you acknowledge that I'm not happy with the way things are in my business working on contingent, and I want to work on a retained basis, until you say that, and nothing will change. But if you say, well, actually, that's just the market, it's contingent, and that's where it is in North America or in Chicago or wherever you are right now, and there's nothing I can do about it, nothing will change. But if you acknowledge, actually, this is what's going on, and I can actually do something about it, that's when the change comes. And the same with the hiring manager. Until the hiring manager says that, no, hell, I want to work with it exclusively. I don't want the cheapest candidate. This is a business critical role. We get this wrong, it impacts our bottom line.
Yeah.
We get this wrong, the projects aren't going to be delivered on time. My head's on the block if I get this wrong. They're business critical. That's where the motivation is there.
Yeah. 100%. And Terry, this is sort of a related question. Again, just let us know if that makes sense. Give us yes or no in the chat box. I see there's a few other questions coming in as well. Another question here, Terry, is if a customer pushes for contingency based, what are some examples of situation where you would agree that's the best solution for them? Again, if I go first on this, Terry.
Yeah, say yeah.
For me personally, again, there's no right or wrong here. This is a belief system. I don't believe that contingency is good for any situation unless the hiring manager is not serious about recruiting. If they don't want the best candidate, then fine. Then I guess, yeah, doesn't make sense for them to commit to hiring, commit to going down the exclusive conversation or going down retain route. If they're not committed to that, fine. If they are committed to hiring, then it doesn't make sense to go down the contingency route to me, because there's less chance of getting the best candidate. There's less chance of, again, for you as a recruiter, for you as the recruiting situation, you are not going to be as committed to that vacancy as you would be if it was retained or exclusive. Categorically, you're not going to be, because if let's say you're working with one client contingency and another client comes along and says, "Look, I'm going to pay you up front for a similar type of role," who are you going to give more priority to? Right? Again, I could be wrong, but my brain says it's going to be the one who's paid you up front. So then it's not best for the client. It's not best for the contingency client. So I personally don't believe there is a situation where contingency is best, unless they're not serious about hiring, in which case I don't think you should be working on it. You should be working on it. And Terry, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've endorsed everything that you've said there, Drew. 100%. Everything that you said there. So I've really got nothing else to add. And it's got to be what's right for the client.
Awesome. Again, I know there are a few questions. I was going to go to number 6, number 7, and then we'll come back to the question just because we're short on time. So number 6 is your fee should never be revealed without context to the value you will deliver. So your fee should never be revealed without context to the value you deliver. So just quickly on this one. Again, one of the key mistakes that we see that people make is, you'll be doing outreach, doing business development, and then a client will say, or potential client will say, okay, look, yeah, send me your terms. What's your fee? And because we're so sort of keen to win a business, so keen to impress, we give our fee. You shouldn't be giving your fee without, the fee should be the last thing you talk about, really. For me, before we give our fee, we should need to understand the client's problem, understand that, a retained or exclusive conversation service is right for them, get them to agree to that as well. Because if they don't agree that exclusivity is right for them, then, our fees are irrelevant anyway. A fee should be the last thing we really talk about when we've got them to agree that they want to work with you. Again, someone check in, does that make sense? Give me a yes or no in the chat box. And Terry, anything you want to add to that?
No, it's not this stage, Drew. No, we're kind of pushed for time now. We made Ben a promise that we weren't going to overrun, so we're going to honour that.
Yes, give me a yes or no in the chat box. That's making sense, and I will come to the questions as well. But let us know. Awesome, perfect. So number 7 is to, again, this is a big one as well, to release all attachments to the sale or to the yes. If you need to sale. If you feel like you need to sell, your prospects are going to feel that it's going to come across, right? Again, this is linked back to what we're saying before. We need to do what's best for the client. The best situation for you to be in any sales situation is to be detached from the outcome, where we can go into a sales meeting. And again, having more meetings helps this. Speaking to hiring managers, future hiring managers helps this. Speaking to people who actually, have the budget authority you need and timing helps this. If we can detach from the sale, again, you make more sales. Again, Terry, just very quickly, anything to add to that before we dive into the questions?
Yeah, just very quickly. So we've all met salespeople, and Drew and I joke about it. We call them commission breath, where they're desperate for the sale. And and I know, it's not particularly attractive. So the moment you're attached to the outcome, the hiring manager can smell that from 50 paces. And what you're also doing as well, you're focusing on yourself. But this meeting isn't about you. It's about getting the best solution for the hiring manager. So the moment you have that desperation, you're oh shit, I need this business. I need to get this invoice paid. That's about you. You're not focusing on what's best for the hiring manager. But if you can just focus on the hiring manager and the challenges they're having, by the way, it makes the whole conversation easier because you're now leaning out of the call and you're just asking the question and saying, and you're just thinking, I just want to help solve this problem. And if I can't solve it, I'm going to point in the right direction to somebody that can solve this problem. It's the whole dynamics of of the call change when you lean out and just focus on helping them rather than focus on you. And just very
Yeah.
quickly, if you have any discomfort about selling and asking the order, you're focusing on yourself because you're now focusing about how you feel. It's not about you. It's about getting the best solution for the hiring manager. Listen, I talk quickly, but I can talk even quicker when we're pushed on time. So I'm going to hand it back to you, Drew.
No, likewise. Again, just for anyone who wants the our objection sheet and the sales script that we use to help our clients with more retainers, we go to makemoreplacements.com/call. I'm just going to dive into the question now. If you've got any questions, now's the time to put them in the chat box. Cool. So yeah, Christina's asked. Let me just give a recap on what all the secrets is, because there's a few people asking what they were. So number one was approach prospects before they have a need, not when they have a need. Number two was only sell to buyers. 3 was the number one objective of the sales meeting is to help the prospect make the best decision for them. 4 is more opportunities create more room to say no. 5, never offer a solution without first a deep understanding of what the problem is. 6, your fee should never be revealed without context to the value that you deliver, right? The fee is the last thing you talk about. 7, release all attachments to sale. If you need to sell, you won't get it. Again, someone check in. Everyone following. Cool. Terry, I want to dive into some of these questions. Question is, do you feel like a customer becomes a longer term partnership when they agree to retain versus contingency?
Yeah, because here's the thing about retain, by the way. Yeah, the answer is yeah, because a client won't pay you a retainer unless they trust you. Think about it. You're going to be asking for, some of our clients get retainers of, 30, 40,000. That's just the retainer because the total fee is going to be, 120, 140,000. They've got to trust you in doing that. The fact that you've got the retainer and you've got a percentage of the fee up front, they trust you. One of the reasons why you won't get retainers is because they don't trust you. The same way if I knocked on your door or gave you a call and said, look, you don't know who I am, but will you pay me 10,000 and I'll do some of the work for you? You're like, well, I don't even know who you are. I'll come, that discomfort comes in. So the answer to that is a definite yes. Anything you'd add to that, Drew?
No, not really. Yeah, I think 100% yes, I agree with what you said, Terry. There's nothing more to that. I think for me, contingency is very
Transactional, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very transactional. There's not really a relationship there. From your part, other clients, I think you're taking on more job orders than you need to, or not than you need to, but you're taking on multiple job orders because you don't know which one you're going to fill. So you're not really dedicated to any client compared to retained, where again, let's take two businesses. One where the fill rate's 20% because they're working contingency. They're going to have to work 10 job orders to fill 2. Retained's going to work 2 job orders to fill 2. They're going to give a lot more time, energy, attention to those 2 clients than any contingency recruiter ever could, right? So I think, yeah, just because of the dynamics of it, there's going to be more long-term partnership there. And, plus, if you've got someone to pay you up front, it's already there. It already shows that they trust you. It already shows that the relationship's there. Question here is, if you're setting up a recruitment business and still don't have the power to walk away from deals, how can you find a middle ground with prospects so they don't walk all over you? Again, Tara, I'm keen to hear your thoughts on this. I was going to say, I think you're probably in the best position to walk away from deals right now, where, again, I don't know your situation, but I think a year down the line where you're going to have overheads, more commitments, all that sort of thing, like it's probably going to be harder then. I think probably now's the time to almost experiment with it and set your stake in the ground now and say, look, this is the way I'm going to work and walk away from deals, right? And again, this isn't anything new. We all walk away from deals. There's a fee that you won't go below anyway, right? I'm just saying to increase that a bit, raise your standards. Terry, anything you want to add to that?
Not really. And other than you've always got the power. Let me repeat. You decide who you work with, when you work with them, for how much. That's your power. Don't give it to anybody else. You've got the power right now to walk away from crap deals. And crap clients, we've all met those clients who are a pain in the butt. And when they call, you see them on your mobile, you're like, oh man, I really want to take this call. It's your, I'll go on. What you're not changing, you're choosing. You can't complain about the crap client, the crap fees, because you're choosing them.
Yeah.
If you're not changing it, you're choosing it. Next question, please, Drew.
So question from Matt is, when you're talking to a candidate exclusively for the client, are you asking the candidates to be exclusive to this client as well?
No, and you can't, can you? You're not allowed. Well, certainly in the UK, you're not allowed to do that. So no. So that's all. That's always going to happen. So there is always a possibility, rather, that can happen when the candidate says, "Just to let you know, I'm talking to 2 or 3 other people as well." So the answer is no, you can't do that.
Yeah. Question here from Sarah. If in your experience, how many outreaches and no's do you have to get to 20 client calls a month? It's difficult
I'm
to
not sure
answer.
if I understand that.
Like
How many?
what business development do you need to do to get 20 calls? It's difficult to say without knowing your sector, your industry. Every market's different. What I would say is you will have the numbers in your business right now. So let's say you at the moment you book 2 calls a month or whatever. It doesn't matter. Look at the outreach you're doing right now, and effectively you need to 10x that, right? Improve it and 10x that. So there's no sort of rule, but that's the sort of the baseline I'd use. Look at your numbers right now and look at how can you increase it. Cool. A question here. Yeah, so Naji said, can you explain exclusive cancellation, but as in the fee structure?
Yeah. Okay. So you agree to work with a client exclusively, and you then look. You say, look, we'll work exclusively for, and the period is dependent on both parties, both the hiring manager and you, Nadia. So I don't know your sector in, but you might go, actually, it's going to take us 6 weeks to find this person. So if we're going to agree to work exclusively for the next 6 weeks, if you cancel for any reason within that period, then you pay the cancellation fee, which typically is a third of the final fee. So in terms of the fee, it's a third of the final fee. So if your total fee was 30,000, they'll pay 10,000 for cancelling. And full disclosure, a percentage of the clients won't agree to it. If they don't agree to it, shake their hand and thank them, because you've dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
They were never going to agree. They were never going to work with you exclusive if they don't agree to that. If they're going to work with you exclusive, they've got nothing to worry about.
Yeah, the only reason a client will be against the cancellation fee is if they're thinking about cancelling. Okay, that's the only reason you'd ever, we've all signed contracts with clauses where you think, those clauses don't matter because I'm not gonna, they're not relevant to me. If the client's gonna cancel, then that's the only reason they'd have an issue with that cancellation fee, right? And then you need to think about it. If they're already thinking about cancelling before you already started a relationship, is this really a client you want to work with? I guess when check in, has this been useful today? Give us a yes or no in the chat box. I think Ben's calling us time. Seniors.
And it's 100% my fault, guys, for everybody listening. They were supposed to have more time, but I wanted to say the F word. I screwed up on the schedule. So Terry, Drew, thank you guys for compressing what should be a much longer talk into this tight amount of time. It's one of the joys of running events. Sometimes you make a mistake on the back end, but I am so grateful that Drew and Terry got to partake, got to join. And absolutely, as you guys have seen I've been watching the chat, like they just absolutely crushed it with value.
Thanks
Amazing.
a lot, Benjamin. Thanks for all the
thanks
feedback
for
that we got
having
as well. Just to repeat, if you want to jump on the call, one of our team, and get those free tools that are going to help you win more retainers, get higher fees, if you go to that link there that Drew shared, if you quickly put it in again, please, Drew.
Yeah, it's just makemoreplacements.com/call.
Yeah.
Book 15 minutes slot. We'll give you the terms for winning retainers, the script for winning retainers, and also the objection sheet as well that we give to our clients. So you have all that framework. We were going to go over on the call, but again, we'll give you 15 minutes after the call to go through it.
Yeah.
All right.
And just very quickly, somebody's asked would it be one of our team members for the 15-minute call. So to answer your question.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. And I will see everybody within the next 30 seconds in the next session.
Take care, guys. Thanks
Cheers.
a lot.
Take care.
Ben.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Take care. Cheers, Ben.
Bye.
Bye.